Right, we're going to look at some percentage work now, and we're going to take an approach which is slightly different from the way that you may have calculated a percentage increase or decrease in Key Stage 3. And although that method will work for the sort of questions we're looking at, this multiplier method is one that we'll be applying in later lessons to grade B type percentage questions that the Key Stage 3 method doesn't really work for. So it's kind of making you have to think about this in a different way. So when we're using a multiplier, we always need to treat the original quantity as 100%. So whatever your starting context is before it's been increased or before it's been decreased, that's 100%. So when that quantity has then been increased by a given percentage, you end up with something that's bigger than what you started with. So the outcome is larger than the original. So if a quantity has been increased, for example, by 15%, then the new value will be the original, which is 100, plus 15%. So you'll end up with a value which is 115% of the original amount. Now, to turn 115% into a decimal, if you just think of writing 115 pence, but in pounds, so 115 pence would be pound symbol 1.15. So to turn percentages into decimals, if you remember from a lesson that we did before Christmas, think of writing it, turning pence into pounds. So 115% is written as 1.15. So your original value, you're going to multiply it by 1.15, and that will then give you the increased value. So let's say, for example, that we're going to increase £250 by 15%. So the way you would have done it at Key Stage 3 is you would have worked out what 15% of that quantity is and then add it on. So the only difference with the method that we're using now is that we're basically adding the 15% on to the 100% to get 115. So the multiplier is going to be 115%, which gives us 1.15. So we're going to do 250 times 1.15. Just get a calculator. And we get 287.5. Now, because the context of this is money, we'll put pound symbol in front of it, but also we wouldn't write that as 0.5, we would write it as 50 pence. So the increase is £287.50. So rather than doing 15% of that and adding it on, we've just multiplied it by 1.15. And this is the step that's going to help us later this week when we look at grade B questions. Now the same thing applies with a decrease. So when it's being decreased, we've got to have a smaller new value. And if we've got a quantity that's been decreased by 12%, then our original is 100%. We reduce that by 12, so we're going to take 12% off it. So we end up with a value that's 88% of the original amount. So thinking of 88%, 88 pence written in pounds would be £0.88. So our multiplier is 0.88. So to decrease 245 kilos by 12%, the multiplier will be 100% less 12%, which is 88%, and that is 0.88. So we're going to take our original amount, we're going to multiply it by 0.88, and get 215.6. Now this context isn't money, it's kilos, so we would just leave it as 0.6 and we wouldn't put that extra 0 on it. So again, key stage 3, you would have worked out what 12% of that is and then subtracted it. So the only difference now is we're subtracting the percentage before we work that out. So let's take a look at a couple of past paper questions. This is an OCW question. Gemma bought a tablet last year for £240. She sold it to a friend after a year for 35% less than she paid for it. She sees a new tablet on sale for £365 with a special offer of 20% off. Gemma decides to use the money she has from selling her old tablet towards buying the new one. How much extra will Gemma have to pay? So this is the question. So this is what I'm going to need to make sure I'm answering. So first of all, let's work out how much she got for her old tablet. So money received for old tablet. Well, the multiplier, she's going to lose money, so she paid 100% for it, and then she's going to lose 35%. So that's 65%. So she gets 65% of the original. As a multiplier, that is going to be 0.65. So she paid 240 times 0.65 is 240 times 0.65 is £156. So she's got £156 which she can pay towards the new one, and the new one's got a 20% off offer. So money needed for new tablet so the multiplier will be 100% less the 20% equals 80%. 80% is 0.8 or 0.80. So £365 times 0.8 292. So the new tablet's going to cost her £292. She's got 156 from selling her old one. So how much extra will she have to pay? So she must pay, I don't know why I've written mult there, an extra 292 less 156. £136. So she's got to find an extra £136 from somewhere. Now I've written out multiplier and then done the maths. Multiplier, then done the maths. That's important really because it's an OCW question. That's worth 8 marks. 8 marks is a big mark question. But once you've got your head around this, you've got the hang of it. Then the only maths you really need is that line there and that line there. Okay, the examiner can see the multiplier that you're using, so it is important that you're putting that in. Now question 2 shows a situation where you've got a repeated multiplier to deal with. So Jane and Thomas own a sandwich business. They decide to price sandwiches individually each morning. At 3 p.m, any unsold sandwiches are reduced by 45%. Any sandwiches still unsold by 4:30 p.m. are reduced by a further 20%. Jane says, why not reduce the sandwiches by 65% at 4:30? So basically combining the two. It works out the same. Thomas disagrees with Jane. Using multipliers show that Jane is incorrect. So in 2 stages, let's say that the sandwich costs £3. Okay, it doesn't give us one, so it's up to us to choose. So if a sandwich cost £3, then the way this works, at 4:30 the cost would be £3 multiplied by the first multiplier, so the first reduction would be 100 less 45%, which is 55%. So it would be £3 times 0.55, and then the second reduction is a further 20%. So a multiplier of 80%. So the cost at £4.30 will be after that double reduction. So £3 is the cost of the sandwich times 55%, and then that is reduced by another 80%. So the sandwich is going to cost £1.32. But using Jane's method, the reduction will leave a multiplier of 35%, so that £3 sandwich would cost £1.05. So she's wrong because they're not the same. So with these repeated multipliers, that's what you need to do. So first reduction is a 45% reduction, so it'll leave you 55% of the original cost, and then that will be multiplied by 80% of that cost because it's come down by another 20%. So those are 2 past paper questions. What I want you to do now is to have a go at the questions that I've put on Google Slides, number 1. They're a little bit more straightforward than those 2 past paper questions, so see how you get on. And then in the second part of the lesson, we'll move on to calculating percentage values.